This podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Bogosity. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. That's audibletrial.com/Bogosity. Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the 12th of December 2016, the podcast that searches the TSA. This is your host, Shane Killian, and joining me this week is Charles Thomas. Charlie, welcome back to the podcast.
It's been a while, ladies and gentlemen. How y'all doing?
Okay, we need to do a couple of corrections from last time. We did that one that we kind of threw together live just so we wouldn't have a million stories to cover this through. So it was live, we couldn't edit, and it was kind of at the last minute, and you know how that goes. So one of them was that Ibrahim said that he thought a political party built around the private roads going from Belarus to Russia would be the first libertarian political party in that region. Alex Kozliev let us know in the comments that Russia has a libertarian party and Belarus has a Mises Research Center. The other one was mine, a couple of figures I pulled from my admittedly faulty memory, and it's one of those things that if you're recording, you can say, okay, hold on, let me look that up, and then just edit out the dead air, but you can't really do that when it's live, so I just kind of said figures. And Ibrahim said that he thought my difference in building times between the Empire State Building and the Freedom Tower was exaggerated. He was right, but my point kind of still stands. The Empire State Building took 20 months to construct when you include planning, so just like 4 months shy of being 2 years. The construction itself went from June to November of 1930, so 5 months of actual build time. It was done ahead of time and under budget. The 13-year figure I gave for the Freedom Tower included planning, but construction didn't begin until November 2007 and was completed in November 2014, so 7 years for the actual construction, which was 4 years longer than initial projections and about $1 billion over budget.
Ouch.
And when you consider with all the advances in building materials and technology and everything, I mean, yeah, I know Freedom Tower is a lot bigger than the Empire State Building, but still, if anything, it should have been, about the same amount of time or even faster. But when they were building the Empire State Building, it was a private endeavor and they were in competition with everyone else building skyscrapers. So the incentive was to get it done in a timely fashion and get it done on budget and get it done right. So, all right, now let's sepulcher the news of the bogus. And this first is an update to a previous story. We covered the case of Thomas Gonzalez. He operated an adult care home, and he was sued because that adult care home's IP address, which could have been from anyone of the site, even residents, was used to download the Adam Sandler movie The Cobbler. Why, we still don't know. But we pointed out how ridiculous this was. An Oregon District Court has agreed, siding with Gonzalez, calling the filmmaker's tactics over-aggressive and unreasonable.
Well, of course. It is basically trying to destroy a person who runs this adult care center for the elderly and people who need help. And you're just going to say, have their lives ruined, or their names dragged through the mud and such.
Well, the filmmakers even admitted in court that any guest could have downloaded it.
Yeah.
So the case was dismissed, and Gonzalez sued them for fees and expenses he spent defending himself. The district court said Gonzalez is entitled to over $17,000 in compensation. According to Magistrate Judge Stacy Beckerman, quote, "The court finds that once plaintiff learned that the alleged infringement was taking place at an adult group care home at which Gonzalez did not reside, plaintiff's continued pursuit of Gonzalez for copyright infringement was objectively unreasonable."
Well, yeah, of course. And I'm hopeful there will be more judges in the future that see these issues, this whole piracy thing, and just start dropping these cases.
There's thought like that because we're seeing more and more of these, and a lot of people are saying, yeah, it looks like judges are just getting kind of fed up with this.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's a real good thing.
But she went beyond that, saying, quote, "The court shares Gonzalez's concern that plaintiff is motivated, at least in large part, by extracting large settlements from individual consumers prior to any meaningful litigation. On balance, the court has concerns about the motivation behind plaintiffs' over-aggressive litigation of this case and other cases, and that factor weighs in favor of fee shifting, which, if you want my opinion, that should be the case anyway. We're about the only Western country that doesn't have loser pays.
Well, we should. As a, hey, you lost, and you should have them pay now. They shouldn't have to pay any 1 red cent for their lawyers and everything else. You had to comp for their legal fees and time wasted in court.
Quote, compensating Gonzalez will encourage future defendants with valid defenses to litigate those defenses even if the litigation is expensive. Conversely, and perhaps more importantly, awarding fees to Gonzalez should deter plaintiff in the future from continuing its over-aggressive pursuit of alleged infringers without a reasonable factual basis. The filmmakers have 2 weeks to object, but if they do, there's a possibility they could end up paying even more. I guess depending on how honked off the judge is.
That's good. Honestly, I wish in a perfect world more of these cases get thrown out and the corporations have to pay the legal fees of these defendants and such. Let them say, hey, I don't need to have my life ruined.
Say, if you're tired of the promos in this podcast, well, the patrons got it early and with no ads or promos. Just go to patreon.bogosity.tv and donate at any level. We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before. Not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. And an update in the Julian Assange story. He's been cooling his heels in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for over 4 years now because as soon as he steps outside, British police will arrest him and send him to Sweden on trumped-up charges. And the fear is that the U.S. will take him from there for indefinite detention.
Oh, boy.
Ecuador had asked the UK and Sweden to veto any possibility of Assange's extradition to the U.S., and they both refused.
Oh, dear.
Now, the UN has ordered that Assange be freed. Earlier this year, the UN told the UK and Sweden to take steps to quickly resolve the issue and assure Assange's liberty. The UK has appealed twice, and this time, I guess the UN was about as honked off as that judge was. The UN rejected the UK's appeal, ordered Assange to be freed, and said that the ruling could not be overturned.
Wow. So what does Max for Julian Assange? Because I know he is one of the main focus of Wikileaks, and if he goes down and everything else, who's going to be the next guy backing him up?
But the internet access there was shut off for a couple of weeks. I don't know if anyone even really explained why, but WikiLeaks kept going. They said, look, we don't need Assange. Assange is great, but we got other people here too. We're still going.
He was like one of the old white people who actually did not like the Clintons. And people are surprised that he was leading this whole hacking thing. I'm like, don't you know his history? And it's amazing. People were so... Oh my God, when the WikiLeaks was so loved, they get all this information about the Iraq War and all this. Everyone loves it, their freedoms.
Yeah, when Republicans were in the White House, the Democrats loved them. But then the Democrats got power, started doing the same thing. WikiLeaks kept doing what it was doing, and all of a sudden, yeah.
Yeah, that's where it is, man. And people are just like, well, take down WikiLeaks, but, at the end of the day, they think the mainstream news is out for them. They think they're for them. Guess again, they're not. They're not for you.
So this UN order was over a week ago as we record this, and Assange is still there. The UK is still saying they'll arrest him immediately as he tries to leave the embassy, and that the UN ruling is not binding on British law, even though that very law has its basis in UN extradition regulations.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Governments making things overly complicated since their inception.
Hey everybody, this is Dave of the Superplex Bros, and you're listening to the Bogosity podcast. When you're done, why don't you head over to superplexbros.com. We have all kinds of editorials and reviews on video games and pro wrestling. We're also currently hosting a major project called the Superplex Pokemon League, and we're about to go into our 3rd season. We just had our actual draft, and we're going over all of the teams and their draft picks. So why don't you head on over there, check things out, and if you like, you can even check out the Superplex Brothers podcast, where Matt and I basically bullshit about video games, pro wrestling, or whatever the hell we want. Anyway, until next time, take care.
Our next story, in case anyone else is still confused as to why we just don't trust the police. According to the BBC, police in the UK are claiming, and apparently have done so in at least one case, that they can get around the need for a warrant by mugging the person.
Yes. This is, as, a black person living in the United States, I'm surprised it probably has happened already.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's going to give them ideas.
No, it already did happen. Stop and frisk, anyone?
Well, this is worse than that. Let me explain. So we've talked before about the difficulty in breaking the encryption on iPhones. Police in the UK that were working with Operation Falcon, a fraud and abuse team, suspected that Gabrielle Yu was manufacturing fake credit cards that were being used by criminals all over Europe, and they also suspected that he was using an iPhone to communicate to other members. And we've talked before about how they can't force you to unlock an iPhone. But since they can't hold you down and force your thumb against the fingerprint reader, these police decided to do the next best thing. Undercover officers trailed Yu and waited for him to make a call. When he did, they rushed him and seized the phone out of his hand. In other words, they mugged him. And one of them just kept continually swiping the screen to keep it from locking before they could download the data on it.
Yes. And this is in the UK, by the way, where there are no guns and everything. The police are your friend. I
think we've come a long way from bobbies on bicycles.
Yeah. And same thing in this country. The people, they're beating you up and basically saying, we have to download the data, which, by the way, won't probably even help you in the case. I mean, what is so hard for getting a warrant?
Well, in this case, it apparently did, and this is why we're not actually defending you here. He apparently was very much the criminal they figured him to be. There was a lot of data on the phone about his criminal enterprise, and that data ended up linking them to another 100 suspects. Yu ended up pleading guilty to fraud and weapons offenses and was jailed for 5.5 years.
Okay, yes, but that to me even more worrying because that will open up the door for more, like say, for example, someone who was a mistaken identity. He might look like the same, like, he has the same type of coat, they mug him, and the digital information doesn't connect to the case, then what?
Yeah.
That's the fear here.
Yeah, do we really want to live in a world where the police can mug you and just go through your phone whenever they want?
No. And I say this, what is wrong with getting a warrant? What is wrong with actually doing some good police work? Because people say, there's no time. I would be lenient to that. Like, if there was a life in jeopardy, I would get that. But to me, what if it is like, say, unfair evidence? Some lawyer comes in, a really good one, and says, since you got this information illegally, and then the evidence is tossed, and all that work goes for nothing.
And maybe this will inspire Google and Apple to make Android and iOS to where as soon as you make a call, while you're making the call, it goes ahead and locks the phone so that someone can't do that.
Well, yeah. I think that would be a really good idea.
Because if the police can do it, so can a criminal. Are you an Amazon customer? Great! Bogosity.tv is a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for sites to earn advertising fees by advertising and linking to Amazon.com. Just clear your cookies and go to Amazon.bogosity.tv. I promise you won't pay a penny more for your purchases. Or check the right-hand side of the podcast page for special Amazon deals. And if you've never used the Amazon app before or haven't used it in the last 12 months, you can get $5 off your order of $10 or more by going to Get5, that's GET numeral 5.bogosity.tv on your mobile phone. And you can even make Amazon purchases with Bitcoin and get 20% off or even more by going to Purse, that's PURSE.bogosity.tv. Amazon.bogosity.tv, Get5.bogosity.tv, and Purse.bogosity.tv. Great ways to shop at Amazon. And now it's time to firewall this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And here's another example of how the progressives are today, just like the moral majority of old. This time, it's banning books.
Ah, yes, banning books, and one step away from doing the other thing with books that start with a B.
Accomack County Public Schools in Virginia has banned Huckleberry Finn and To Kill a Mockingbird, saying that the books are, get this, racist.
What?
And they contain racial slurs that are triggering to minority students.
Oh, that is bull. I'm trying to see. I'm making sure this is a family-friendly podcast, because it's pretty much BS right there. Because I remember reading To Kill a Mockingbird when I was a kid, and I wasn't triggered. I watched the movie. It wasn't that type. It was the language of the day. What is wrong with that?
And all of this was on the complaint of one parent who didn't want her special little snowflake to see those nasty, wasty words.
Oh, wow. One person, this is amazing how we have become too soft to know these words. These words, you can't ignore the history of, yes, those words might be harmful and wrong type of language now, but I think the content of those stories, the content of To Kill a Mockingbird really shows, how the legacy and the importance of it, and it's a part of our history.
Yeah, I mean, these books are anti-racist. To Kill a Mockingbird is about racism in the criminal justice system. You'd think regressives would be down with that.
Exactly.
Atticus Finch suffers great personal grief. He defends Tom Robinson, a black man falsely accused of raping a young white woman. Robinson gets convicted despite overwhelming evidence of his innocence. And it's all about what happens when you put a greater priority on skin color than you do on the facts. And I think I just answered my own question about why regressives don't like it. Well,
yeah.
And Huckleberry Finn is the same thing. It's all about how illogical and absurd racism is, as Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn learned that from Jim and end up trying to help him escape and get his freedom.
Exactly. Those are stories that help. Banning books like this will not help the divide we have right now in this country, because we have really these issues. Books like these, even though they are fictional stories, but these are the stories that will keep you pulling your heart. Stories like that should be told for help change within that system.
So this parent said at a school board meeting, quote, "I keep hearing, this is a classic, but at some point, I feel that children will not or do not truly get the classic part. There are so many racial slurs in there and offensive wording that you can't get past that. So what are we teaching our children? We're validating that these words are acceptable, and they're not acceptable by any means," really sounding as if she hasn't read either book.
I don't think she actually read the Wikipedia page. I think she didn't even read...
Not even the Cliff Notes.
No. This is why I go hard on social justice warriors. And this is just one parent that they see has pushed the school to do it, and how many other times have these things will happen?
Well, actually, quite a lot, because To Kill a Mockingbird is number 21 on the American Library Association's top 100 banned and challenged books list. Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is number 14.
Oh, this is just... why?
Yep. You know what number 1 is?
What?
The Harry Potter series.
Oh, boy. Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 5 is Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men.
Oh.
Number 17 is The Color Purple.
Wow.
19 is Catcher in the Rye. Number 36 is Brave New World. Number 46 is Slaughterhouse-5. That's one I remember liberals used to love banning, back in like the 80s and 90s, when I was in school. I think they were going mainly on the title. But Number 49 is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Number 88 is The Handmaid's Tale. We've talked about that one before. And here's an irony for you. Number 69 is Fahrenheit 451, a book about banning books.
Because the people did it themselves.
Yeah.
And that is the one thing that they have lost the plot on. And they wonder why we're so screwed up. The Harry Potter thing, I'm going to say this. I'm a Christian. Personally, I don't see the harm of reading Harry Potter. Personally, I think the books are just okay. I know some people are like, how dare you? You must want to ban. I'm like, no, I don't care for it. I'm just like, you want to let it exist. I just like, if you want to read it, fine.
My sister is very religious. And she had, I think, kind of bought into the little thing and didn't really want to read them. And my daughter convinced her to read them. And so she read them and she loves them.
Yeah, I can see why some people. Fantastic stories. You know, I'm not against the Harry Potter series because, I mean, some of the movies are pretty decent.
Don't judge the books by the movies because they just try to cram everything in the movies and you're just running from one plot point to the other without any of the character development that's in the books.
Yeah, but I read one or two of them when I was a kid, but didn't grab hold of me. That's just my thing. But hey, I say have fun. Don't take them too seriously, you know? Banning them is never going to work. Banning things never work. Why did we have not learned from this from Prohibition? Well, we just switch the words around and everything works out just fine.
But here's the thing. Yes, these books are offensive because they're supposed to be. All important books are offensive in some way because you don't contribute to the progress of mankind without honking off somebody.
Yeah, to ignore the history and the language of its day.
Well, and also, there's an opportunity here that's just being frittered away because the only reason words like the N-word have power is because people give them that power by being all offended by it. And I think I made this point in another podcast. But, you know, if I were to call you a humbug, you know, you'd probably chuckle and like, what? Humbug? But if this were 200 years ago, that would be a highly offensive thing to say because the word has lost its power. And, I mean, if that happens with the N-word, then what have you done? You've taken away this really big source of power that racists have over you.
Exactly.
So that's why all of these regressives, and specifically Accomack County Public Schools, are this week's biggest Bogon emitter. If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. And now let's sell instant water to this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
And this week it goes to the U.S. Copyright Office, and it just seems to be something about government departments that when they're told something is a bad idea, they just have to go ahead and do it anyway. Case in point, the Copyright Office's idea for websites to register DMCA agents.
Okay, that does not seem too terrible.
Well, the idea is you can register your website and be under the DMCA's safe harbor rules, which means you're not liable if users post copyrighted material to your website, as is the case automatically in every other area except copyright, but... Now keep in mind that this is the same Copyright Office that says copyright holders do not have to register their works to have protection. So they built a website. Now they did reduce the required payment from $100 down to just $6, but they're tossing out all of the old registrations, meaning you need to re-register if you want to keep safe harbor status. Not only that, But records expire every 3 years, so unless you remember to specifically renew, again, you lose your safe harbor protections.
Oh, joy.
So how could it possibly get any worse? Well, as tons of website owners found when they tried to register or re-register, once again, the government has built a completely broken website.
Oh, wow, shame. I gotta sit down because that's shocking.
First, to register, you must have an organization name and a second contact name, meaning that it's impossible for individuals or sole proprietorships to register and get safe harbor protections.
Because that's gonna work. Why do they continue to do this stuff? It just makes things harder for people. It's just trying to be just like, we're going to make it so hard for people to do it. Oh, man. It's a confusing mess. That's what it is.
And then there's the password system. Here's what the website says. Password must have at least 12 characters with at least one lowercase letter, uppercase letter, number, and special character, quote, exclamation mark, @ number sign, $sign, percent sign, caret, ampersand, asterisk, open parentheses, close parentheses, double quote, and must not have any repeated letters, numbers, or special characters. And what's sad about it is that NIST has recently released new guidelines for password management on government websites, and they're actually pretty good. Too bad the Copyright Office didn't follow them. Here's one of NIST's new rules, quote, no composition rules. What this means is, no more rules that force you to use particular characters or combinations, like those daunting conditions on some password reset pages that say your password must contain one lowercase letter, one uppercase letter, one number, 4 symbols, but not ampersand, number sign, colon, and the surname of at least one astronaut. Let people choose freely and encourage longer phrases instead of hard-to-remember passwords or illusory complexity. Not only that, but banning repeated letters is a bad security practice. It means there are entire combinations of characters that are not permitted, and this weakens the password. The German Enigma code in World War II had a similar restriction, and that was actually the key to breaking it.
And I sit here and I'm like, wait a minute. If I understand this, be a simple layman, why? This is just straight up, well, BS. It is.
Now here's what TechDirt's Mike Masnick experienced when he tried it, quote, I generated a much longer password and then manually went through and removed any repeated letters, numbers, or special characters and made sure that all of the other rules were met. They were. I hit submit. The system rejected it and gave me the exact same error message. I tried again. Same problem. I kept trying things for about 20 minutes until I figured out what the problem was. You see above where it says and special character, quote, bang, @ number, etc. Well, in my first attempt at a password, I had 2 special characters, question mark and greater than. I incorrectly assumed that when they say special characters, they mean any special character on the keyboard and not just those limited to the ones above the number line on your keyboard. Once I realized that might be the issue, I still had a problem, and that's because my new password had double quote as a special character. I incorrectly assumed that that was okay because it's in that list above, right? Except no, it's not. It's just put around those symbols for no reason at all except to fool people.
But when a big password break happens, they're going to sit there and say, well, it wasn't my fault. Maybe you just had to get a better password.
He goes on, quote, once I finally finished that, the system sent me a confirmation validation email, good, which I used to confirm my email and log into the system, only to discover that everything I had just done was not actually registering a DMCA agent. It was just to register your account to use the Copyright Office's DMCA system. So I had to then go and fill out another form to register our DMCA agent, and I won't even get into the fact that once you've activated your account, the message telling you to click here to log in to designate an agent makes it so that it's not at all clear where to actually click. Great design, guys.
Oh, gosh. Bureaucracy, people. This is what, again, government bureaucracy. How, they make something completely simple and make it completely complicated.
And if that weren't dumb enough, quote, finally, once I'm all registered, and despite the fact that I'm very clearly registered in the United States, The system says I'm in Canada because apparently the genius IT staff thinks that the CA, which everywhere else means California, means Canada in their own system. Because whatever, nothing matters.
At this point, it's trying to rearrange deck chairs in the Titanic. It doesn't matter how many times you try to. At the end of the day, it's still heading to that iceberg. Gotta stay away from that iceberg. And
he concludes, quote, "Off we go to this new era in which websites are much more at risk of losing their safe harbor protections, and to make it more fun, the system you need to use to register yourself is buggy as hell with a bunch of bad design practices." It's almost as if they want websites to lose their safe harbors.
You think?
Considering that the key role of the Copyright Office is to register stuff, the boss of the office is literally called the Register, it seems fairly ridiculous that they make it so difficult to register DMCA agents and then force renewal every 3 years, while at the same time insisting that any renewal requirement for copyright holders would go against the natural order of things and bring famine and pestilence upon the land.
Another reason that the DMCA needs to go. I don't want to say the whole Orwell type of thing, but about that last story and how things are going right now, we might actually be living under like a dystopian futures where people just have things that they, be pushed on by the big elites that say, oh, this is just fine. Here you go, just news that will convert to your biases and no challenge to your thoughts. That's what it is, and that's what it looks like right now.
So all of that makes the U.S. Copyright Office this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
Well, that wraps up this Bobo's Been Eating Yappy's Dog Treats edition of the Bogosity podcast. Come join the discussion at forum.bogosity.tv and feel free to join in by sending a question, statement, news article, or rant in text or audio to podcast@bogosity.tv. This podcast depends on you to keep going, so please donate using the links on the website or the QR codes in the thumbnail, or become a patron at patreon.bogosity.tv and get the podcast and YouTube videos early and without ads or promos. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Charles Thomas for joining me.
No problem. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, people.
This is the last regular podcast for 2016. We'll be back at the end of the year for our 2016 wrap-up and, of course, naming our Idiot of the Year. Until then, here's a quote from Lawrence Lessig. Take the addition, the changes, the copyright's turn. Take the changes to copyright scope. Put it against the background of an extraordinarily concentrated structure of media, and you produce the fact that never in our history have fewer people controlled more of the evolution of our culture. Never. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.
Christmas time is coming, and the most classic of Christmas stories is A Christmas Carol. But how much do you know about the original Charles Dickens novella? Have you dismissed it as a children's book with one-dimensional characters amounting to nothing but platitudes and cliches? Maybe your appreciation of the book was even muted by those dry, boring, annotated books they made you read in school. My book, the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, uses both facts and humor to present the book in a way you probably haven't seen it before. Giving praise when deserved and beratement when warranted, this book is put in the perspective of its time and shows a dimensional, multi-layered Ebenezer Scrooge from start to finish. Skepticism, history, and even economics are employed to show the book in relation to today in an easily accessible format. Appreciate the Christmas of your youth all over again. Get the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, available at Amazon and on PDF as well.
Oh, well, anyway, thanks for listening to the Bogosity podcast, and have a happy holiday and whatever type of denominational thing you people celebrate.
All right.
That's all I have to say.
Yep. I'll just say Merry Christmas. I'm an atheist, but who cares? Merry Christmas.
Well, back at you, bro.